Good evening, friends. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves on assignment here in Lexington, Kentucky. And back home in Maryland is my good friend, esteemed colleague, and Notre Dame fan, John Webster. Good evening, John.
Hey, Gary, how you doing, man? Thanks for the introduction. Hope you had a great week this week. You mentioned Notre Dame. They won another game, but in unbelievable fashion, it was a struggle, and they dropped in the rankings. So it is what it is, Gary. And we'd be remiss if we didn't say hello to our producer, Mr. John Pitt. John, how you doing, man?
Wagwan, fellas. How are you?
All right, John. Yeah, we cannot be remiss. We got to mention you.
A lot of news. I missed a lot of news. Let's get right into it, guys.
All right. Let's see where to start. Well, let's start with the NFL. We have a team that is near and dear to John's heart, literally, as he's wearing the shirt with the Baltimore Ravens. Come on, John, show him the emblem.
Oh, well, it's just a shirt, Gary. It's just a shirt.
Right.
It's just a shirt, man. It's just a shirt.
Yeah, a shirt that I'm not sure you'd be wearing if they had lost the other night, right?
Gary, I have many shirts of many teams. It's just a shirt. It just so happens that this team is very, very good. Year in and year out, one of the best teams in the NFL. Not quite as good as my New England Patriots, but they're very good.
John, are you on the right feed on this? When is it not as good as the New England Patriots?
We still have a light on for Tom Brady to come back, Gary. It's going to happen.
John, anybody hearing that might wonder if the light is out upstairs, okay? I mean, come on, man. He ain't leaving Tampa. He's gonna get one for the other thumb now. That's what he's shooting for now. But since you brought that up, well, okay, since I brought up the Ravens first, let's start with them. I didn't get a chance to see that comeback the other night, but from what I've read, another epic Lamar Jackson story. The guy, I don't know what it's going to take for his doubters to be silenced, because 3 days later, I'm still seeing stuff where people take shots at him. Some of his critics, some in my profession, that still want to refer to him as a running back playing quarterback. You don't throw for that many yards. You don't throw for for almost 400 yards or whatever, or over 400 yards, and still be considered a running back. And it's about time that kind of thing stops, John.
Totally agree, Gary. In the second half alone, over 300 yards Jackson threw for. He had quite a game. He led the comeback. It's been proven he's one of the best players in the NFL, and he is exciting to absolutely watch. One of the things that unfortunately is said about some quarterbacks and Jackson, as far as won't stay in the pocket, doesn't read defense as well. I watched this kid the other night, man, and he read defenses, checked down through the second and third options, stayed in the pocket, stepped up in the pocket. I'm no football guy, and I don't pretend to be or know it like any scout would, but he's a true NFL quarterback, and he's doing a great job. And like you said, Gary, it's unfortunate that some do not want to give him all the credit he deserves. If you look at what they've done this year, the Ravens are 4-1. They could easily be 1-4 or 2-3. And the biggest reason they are 4-1 is because of Lamar Jackson, to be honest with you. And really, they could be 5-0 because he led a comeback in the first game of the season against the Raiders, and the defense couldn't hold up to stop the Raiders from scoring and send it to overtime.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I just, I think he's one of the best. Mahomes is one of the best. He's one of the best. You got a group of young quarterbacks coming up now that are excited and good for football. And believe me, Lamar Jackson is included, in my opinion, as being one of the up-and-coming quarterbacks and who are good for this game.
Yeah. It kind of annoys me in a way, these kind of left-handed compliments that he gets, because The problem is everybody, his critics want him to fit into that neat little box, to be this pocket quarterback, and read defenses and everything else. Just get the daggone job done. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is he winning games for you? Yes. Does he extend plays till guys get open? Yes. Does he make things happen with his feet? Yes. That's all that really, really, really matters. If there's my only complaint or my only criticism of him is the same one that was applied to Michael Vick and other mobile quarterbacks, of that type, that you risk sacrificing your body at some point, and you can only take so many hits. And if you see some of the fumbles that he's made this season, and when I say I cringe, not just because he fumbles, but I cringe because he's adding yet another hit. And those things start to pile up on a while after a while, and they really make you think about the decisions that you're going to make. I'm hoping that he gets smarter about it, and instinctively doesn't take off out of the pocket. That's something that I saw here at Louisville. Is something he's still doing, and again, he can make things happen, but at some point he's got to start thinking, I've got to protect my body. I've got to trust my linemen. I've got to trust my receivers to get open.
Yeah, I agree. I think with him, as far as the movement and everything, I would say the movement is very important to his success. I don't want to see him stop doing the moving. Maybe just look at how he can slow it down some in some situations. Maybe make that turn to the sideline as opposed to going straight up the field sometimes. But the thing is, he extends plays, and there were others before him. Michael Vick extended plays. Randall Cunningham has extended plays. Brett Favre has extended plays. Joe Montana has extended plays. My goodness, I can go back to Fran Tarkenton and Roger Staubach extended plays. Doug Williams extended plays. It's always been there with a quarterback who has been able to move around and extend a play and make something happen. And he's just one of a lot before him, and there will be a lot after him who have that gift to extend the play and make something happen. And my goodness, like I said, he is absolutely positively one of the best in the league and absolutely electric and exciting to watch.
Yeah. You had mentioned about Patrick Mahomes, and I'm just going to say this really quickly because we're going to move on to NCAA football. But Patrick Mahomes, I think, is still the gold standard. That's where everything starts. Where you measure great quarterbacks in this league. But my goodness, they've got to do something about that defense. For him to get to another Super Bowl, for him to get to another AFC Championship game, you got to do something about that defense at some point, John.
It's scary. Gary, I'll give you something that defense reminds me of right now. It reminds me of the old San Diego Chargers teams where Dan Fouts could go up and down the field and get you 30, 40 points, but they could give up 35 or 45 points. And I think Mahomes is in a situation where, in my opinion, he's trying very hard to carry it by himself because he knows they're weak on defense. This past Sunday night when they played, they had two defenders out. They had Chris Jones on the line. He had to sit out the game. Then he had a cornerback that couldn't play. They're short there. And then Tyreek Hill got injured. Kelsey got injured. Joe Thuney got injured. And I'll be honest with you, Gary, and you may tell me, you already told me the light bulb's not on in my head today, but I'm going to tell you something. They're coming to town this week to play the Washington football team. Washington could beat them because they have so many injuries. The defense is so weak. And Heineke is the kind of guy, we talk about extending plays again. That kid will extend the play and he'll take a chance. And Washington has some very good receivers. McLaurin, very underrated. People don't realize how good he is because of the struggles the team is having. I'm not saying they will beat Kansas City, but don't be surprised if that's not a battle.
Well, John, that illustrates, two things by you saying that, because when we were doing a game by game just a few weeks ago, and you had that chalked up as an automatic loss for the Washington football team, because it was Kansas City and it is Patrick Mahomes. But everything you said makes perfect sense. That defense is very vulnerable. It's been suspect for a couple of years now, but now they're at a point where they're vulnerable, being down personnel, and they just have not learned their lesson since that Super Bowl. And I'm telling you, it's going to cost them in a division where you've got a Justin Herbert, the San Diego Chargers that are surging. The Chiefs are in serious danger of losing that division if they haven't lost it in effect already.
5 games in, and the Kansas City Chiefs are in last place, Gary. Last place. Yeah. And each of the teams, Denver, San Diego, and Las Vegas, I almost called them Oakland, Las Vegas, have all improved. All of them have improved.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, in last place. And the thing is, and when I say that they could lose the division, it's just like so much can change over the course of the year. They could get better, but right now they don't look like a team with an upward trajectory. And because of that defense. And like you said, Mahomes might be taking on too much of a burden that he doesn't need to. Just get some guys in there. Change. You really got to do something about your defensive scheme. Mm-hmm. It's not just about personnel. It's really about that scheme, and teams are exploiting it major. So,
You're right.
Well, moving down a level to the NCAA, and I don't know if I should say it's down a level because Alabama and Georgia are probably the closest thing to NFL teams as you've got. Alabama's no longer number one. Georgia is. Alabama went down to Texas A&M in an upset that, in a sense, it's an upset, but Texas A&M really needed a win. They have played Alabama relatively close in recent years, since Jimbo has gone down there. And let's just face it, John, they were due. So, with their loss, Georgia gains, and Georgia is starting to play some of its best ball. They face another test this Saturday against the Kentucky Wildcats that I'm covering this week. They're 3 touchdown favorites. The question here has been, will Kentucky cover, as opposed to will they win, which tells you something about how strong Georgia is. My answer to either one is no and no. They're not going to cover because a team like Kentucky, as good as they've been, as impressive as it was, the game I covered against LSU on Saturday, LSU is not the same team. I hope it doesn't cost Coach O his job because, again, they've got a lot of injuries. They lost 2 more guys this week. They lost Keyshawn Butte and they lost another quarterback. That's 4 guys that they've lost in the last 2 weeks. You're not going to make that up in that division. I think you try to, right now, they're at a point of just salvaging the best finish that they can. I hope that doesn't reflect on Orgeron, but moving on to Georgia is the class. Georgia has basically the driver's seat to the playoffs. And if they can, if they can get through that semifinal round, whatever bowl they go to, I think that they're pretty much in a favorite for the national championship right now. What do you think?
Well, Georgia is powerful, man. I mean, you mentioned about Kentucky covering. I got a better question. Do you think, and I hope Kentucky plays well, but Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, Gary, is giving up 3 points a game this year. Isn't that what they're giving up this year?
Yeah, 3 points a game.
Okay. Yeah. So my question is, can Kentucky score? That's the first question right there, because I'm hoping I'm wrong. I want to see a good game, and I would love to see Kentucky play well against Georgia, but they're going to Georgia, playing between the hedges in Athens, and that's a rough place to play. And I just don't. I think Kentucky's had a great season so far. I hope it continues, but that's a tall order right there. That's a real tall order.
Yeah. And it's a very good
Alabama.
question, though, man, about whether they can score. They can move the ball because they can run the ball. But again, you're running up against the defense. I mean, today was our day with the defensive players, and all anybody could really ask them about and talk about is Georgia's size. And again, it's like I'm thinking that teams that come in here and face Kentucky now, with the kind of squad that they put together, look at Kentucky and just say, "Oh my gosh, they're huge." But you're Kentucky, and you go to Athens, Georgia, or Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they're probably saying, "Oh my gosh, these guys are huge." Big difference. And that's where I like to caution people who want to think Kentucky is a contender now. Not quite. They're getting there, but not quite, because again, when you can compete for the same kind of players that Florida and Georgia and LSU and Mississippi, Alabama, those kind of players, that's when you have arrived, when you're competing with those players. Kentucky is just a rung below that. I think everybody needs to understand that here and accept the fact that you are making strides. But Saturday, I think, is going to be a stark reminder of what they have to get to really be considered an SEC contender.
You mentioned Georgia's size, and yes, you're absolutely correct. They are big, but those guys can move too, Gary.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they're the total package, John. I mean, yeah, they are the total package. I mean, and really, they always have been. They just haven't been able to get over the hump against schools like Alabama and sometimes Ohio State. I mean, again, we know who the top 5 programs are, and yes, John, I'm going to put Notre Dame in that top 5.
Gary, I appreciate that, but on this year, my friend, this is a struggle for them this year. It's been some rough games for them, as I said, and we'll see what happens as the season moves on for them. But it's unbelievable, Gary. When you look at the top 4 teams right now, it's Georgia, it's Iowa in that top 4, it's Oklahoma, and it's Cincinnati. And Alabama and Ohio State are on the outside looking in. Who would ever thought? Who would ever thought that's what's going to happen right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all at those schools. Iowa has been on a rise for a couple of years. For several years. Cincinnati has been on the rise as well. They just haven't gotten that kind of notoriety because of the conference that they play in. That's about to change because again, once they join the Big 12, oh my goodness, they're going to start competing for the guys that would go to Ohio State. Like where I live is right off the I-75 corridor, where you've got Lexington, Cincinnati, and then you go up I-71 to Columbus. In the Ohio Valley, there's a lot of talent, and Cincinnati is going to start getting that talent once they get into the Big 12, if they're not already getting it. But again, the power shift is there in college football. I think that's what you're seeing right now, and you're going to see it when the playoff standings are announced next month.
Well, I look forward to it, and I would love to see Cincinnati crash the party. If I'm not mistaken, there has never been a team involved in the Final Four college football playoffs who weren't part of the Big 5. It would be beautiful to me to see Cincinnati crash that party and just do their thing. I mean, I had to sit 2 weeks ago and saw up close the damage that they can do as they played in South Bend against Notre Dame, and
that was surgical. There's no doubt.
Yes.
that was surgical.
Yeah.
Well, John, we're still in fall, which means what? We're in October, which means what?
Major League Baseball playoffs.
All right, we got a Game 5 coming up in the NLDS, Dodgers and Giants. I still think it's the Giants series to lose, but my goodness, boy, can the Dodgers hit the ball or what?
They can, but I'm like you, man. I'm sticking with the Giants. I think they can pull it out this has been a great series. In the regular season, they played each other 19 times. The Giants won 10, the Dodgers won 9, and here we go into the playoffs, and it's 2-2. Yeah, and that's the way it should be. These two teams are evenly matched. I mean, they play unbelievably tough against each other. And like I said to you a few weeks ago, doesn't it bring back memories of the old Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants? I mean, it's fun to watch them battling, and it's just a lot of fun. But I'm sticking with the Giants. I think the Giants get it done. And I'll say this: I know you're going to come to it next. I don't want to blow it for you, but American League, I'm going with the Houston Astros.
I'm not surprised at that, and I'm trying to accept the possibility that could happen. But and I'm telling you, it would offend my sensibilities because before we got on the air here, and I was just thinking, boy, there's just something that seems wrong about the Houston Astros, winning it from an ethical standpoint. John, I believe in the whole, unwritten rules of baseball thing, in terms of, policing itself. But man, I really do draw the line at cheating to the extent that they did. And I guess the thing that really crossed my mind is when I think about Max Scherzer in Game 7 2 years ago, possibly tipping his pitches. Or Steven Strasburg possibly tipping his pitches. Well, it's not so much tipping his pitches; it's that they were reading them from somewhere out in the bleachers. And I'm sorry, that part's just not right. Especially the whole trash can thing. Hey, call me a stick in the mud, but I have a hard time getting over that one. I'm going to get over it and accept the fact that they'll probably win the World Series because of Dusty Baker. He is a great player manager. The guys like him. And in that situation, they couldn't have hired a better guy. Do I think he got a raw deal in DC? Yes, to an extent that they were a winning team. But in a results-driven business like baseball, if you can't get out of the first round, for several years running, you're not going to stay long. You got to make a choice. Make a change, rather.
He's been a winner no matter where he's been when you look at it, Gary. He's been with the Giants, winners, got to the World Series, unfortunately came up short. Cubs, he got him to the playoffs. Cincinnati Reds, he got him to the playoffs. Washington Nationals, he got him to the playoffs. And here we are right now with the Houston Astros. And a lot of why I want him to win is because of Dusty. I want to see him finally get that ring. The White Sox have already started making allegations that there were some shenanigans going on with the Astros in this past series with tipping pitches or just knowing what was being thrown, which is it's unfortunate. And I hear what you're saying, Gary, and I totally get it. But the guy deserves it. He's a lifer. He played the game. Now he's a manager. Nothing would make me happier than to see him win a championship. Yes, I think he deserves it. And I think, like you said, he came into a rough situation. He came into a hornet's nest when he came to the Astros. They were just getting finished with that investigation, and they were having players and managers and general managers being suspended, if I remember correctly, when he came in. And he was able to hold that team together, get them to the playoffs last year, and look at them this year. They are unbelievable. Matter of fact, one of the players who was a free agent this year, Carlos Correa, is one of the top free agents coming out this year. And there's already talk that maybe that team in black and orange, maybe they can make a run to get Carlos Correa, and they could help turn our fortunes around.
John, earlier I was talking about the light being off upstairs, and I was just playfully kidding or whatever. But I'm gonna ask what you might have in a cup that's off screen there, because if he comes to Baltimore, I mean, is he coming for the money?
Well, that's not a really well-paying organization, Gary. You know it.
Hey, yeah. I mean, why would he come to Baltimore? Please
well, the one thing that Baltimore does have, Mike Elias, who was the general manager, was the architect for that Houston program. And Correa was one of the first ones that he brought in there. So there is a tie that maybe he could come to Baltimore because of Elias. And that's what I'm hoping for. There's a future there in Baltimore, Gary. There is a future, but it's still a year or two away. I'm just trying to get it here sooner rather than later.
John, for your standpoint, from for your well-being, rather, I hope it is just maybe a year or two away. It's just hard when a team has only won something like 54, 57 games or something to really, foresee them winning another 26 games and becoming competitive. And I hope, and again, I say that as a supporter of a team that's going to be looking at several 90-loss seasons for the next 2 or 3 years, unless they really draft somebody. And the only way that they can avoid that is if they find a way to open up those purse strings. I mean, moths might come flying out of it when they open it, but you got to lock down Juan Soto and build around him. You got to go after another free agent, another good free agent, and you've got to rebuild that pitching staff. At some point, you got to figure out how you're going to unload that Strasburg salary or restructure it so it doesn't hurt. But again, I think his next contract has got to be incentive laden, with the number of starts, because his health is now, it always was, but it's now a concern because he's older, he's 10 years older, and he's more brittle, for lack of a better word.
Well, I would keep Strasburg because that's the backbone of the pitching staff that they have right now.
I would too.
I would try. Incentives are a good idea. I agree with that, but you need him to bridge to the future. He is, when he's healthy and he's there, he's one of the best, Gary. And I would still keep him around. I would. If you don't want him, again, if you can point him towards the BW Parkway and towards Baltimore, I would have no problem with that.
Yeah. I could, well, I don't see that scenario happening, but that one I would say makes a lot more sense than Correa coming to Baltimore. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, John, moving on to the NBA. We're getting close to the beginning of the regular season. What do you like so far? And we're going to get to Kyrie Irving toward that end here in a few. But let's talk about the good.
Well, I think this is going to be an exciting season. 82 games. The Lakers are going to be very interesting, I think, in the West. Golden State's going to be very interesting. I don't think Golden State can win, but I think they will be a lot better than they were last year. In the East, the Nets are the best team in the East, along with the Milwaukee Bucks. I see that. I think Atlanta Hawks, a year older, have improved. They still have Trae Young, and they're going to be even better. Philadelphia is going to be interesting. I put a question mark there. If they can find a way to bridge the relationship that is with Embiid and Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons coming back into the fold, they are a team to be reckoned with if they can find a way to get along. Ben Simmons, in my opinion, I may be in the minority. I think he still is a very good player. I still think he's a difference maker. I think that mentally some things are bothering him as far as trying to find a shot and getting the shot off. And hopefully through all this summer, he was able to work on his shot some. And if he can defend anybody from 1 to 5, Gary, he can handle the ball, he can pass the ball. He's unbelievable. If you can get him to get you consistently 14, 15 points a game, they're almost unstoppable. Because if you all of a sudden now, instead of just dropping off Ben Simmons and double teaming Embiid, if all of a sudden you have to check him, Ben Simmons one-on-one and Embiid one-on-one, buddy, that's a problem. That's a problem nobody wants to have. So we'll see how it works out. The Boston Celtics have a new coach, and They made some adjustments. We'll see how they do. I think Horford went back to Boston, if I'm not mistaken. I think he went back.
I think he did too.
Yeah. So, and you still have Brown, and you still have Tatum. They are two very good ball players. I know Brown was a little ill. He had COVID, I think last week. So we'll see how he is when the season starts. You come over to the West, and that team over in LA called the Lakers. I mean, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Carmelo, Westbrook, Rondo. That's a great team. But Gary, I got one question for you. Can that team play 82 games? Can that team play 70 games? Can that team play 65 games? That's my question.
And it's a fair one to answer. I'm going to say I don't know. I mean, that's going to be my answer for a lot of things with the Lakers, because all the names that you ran off, no doubt about the talent. I don't know how healthy any of those guys are going to stay for long stretches this season. If you know what I'm saying, are you going to have that same group together? I mean, of course, it's a long season. You're not going to have any group together for that. But LeBron has shown he can miss stretches. Anthony Davis, we already know about his history. I think Westbrook can stay healthy. I think Rondo can stay healthy. For an older guy, he really does show a lot of durability. I mean, he still has a lot of gas left in the tank that, surprisingly for a guy of his age, for the position that he plays.
I think about Rondo more for the playoffs. In the regular season, he's going to be there, but he's not going to, he gets ready for the playoffs. My biggest question is, how many games can you get out of Anthony Davis? And Anthony Davis is going to have to play the 5 as well as the 4. I know he'd rather play the 4, but he's going to be forced to play the 5 some too. The question is, can you get 70 games out of him? Can you get 65 games out of him? That's a big question. Westbrook, no worries whatsoever. That guy is a walking triple-double, and he's going to play 75 to 82 games. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
LeBron, he's going to pace himself, but he's going to play a lot of games. Carmelo, I think, can he fit? Well, I'm not saying can he fit in. He will definitely fit in, but they're going to have to get used to the spacing on the floor, Gary. They're going to have to get used to who's shooting when, who's not shooting when. Davis likes to hang out sometimes on the three-point line. How does that work for rebounding when Carmelo wants to be outside too? So you're going to have to get used to one another. And it's going to take time. I think they are one of the best teams in the West. They will be fun to watch, but they have to be able to play 70 to 80 games this year. And I'm going to tell you something. Golden State's going to be improved.
Oh,
Klay Thompson coming back.
No doubt.
Klay Thompson coming back, Steph Curry, and Andrew Wiggins now is a 3rd or a 4th option. That makes him an even better player. And let me tell you why. Some people can be Batman, some people can be Robin, but some people just want to be a bystander in the car. And that's okay. There's a role for you, there's something you can do. And I think Wiggins becomes better when he does not have as much pressure on him. And if you have Steph Curry doing his thing, if you have Klay Thompson doing his thing, you have Draymond Green doing his thing, 3rd option, maybe even a 4th option, he becomes even that more effective, Gary, because the weight of the world's not on his shoulders. And that kid, James Wiseman, another year under his belt is only going to get better. I know people are talking about trading him in the offseason. You can't find a 6'11" that can run the court like that, Gary. Well, in my opinion, you keep him. And I think Golden State, they may not be a champion team this year, but they're going to be a lot better, Gary, a lot better.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. I think this year we might see probably close to the Golden State team of just a couple of years ago that played Toronto. I mean, a healthy team, a team that's got most of its pieces.
Yeah.
Again, age and health. That's going to be just like with the Lakers. That's going to be their biggest question. But when everything is clicking, if everybody is healthy, yeah, I see them as a 60-win team.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'd be willing to take the over on that one.
Okay. All right. Fair deal. Fair deal.
Yeah.
Well, we got our friend. You want to talk about our friend, Mr. Irving?
Yeah. Okay. Let's put it this way, John. I'm not going to get into his personal beliefs. I'm not going to get into some of the things that he's put out there. That's a deeper dive than I really want to do at this point. Do I think that his stance is going to last for a whole season or last a significant amount of time? No, I'm going to take the over on it because at some point somebody is going to impress upon him to get the shot, or else he's going to forfeit a lot. I mean, right now, I think I saw today where he's forfeiting something like maybe $380,000 of his salary right now. That's a drop in the bucket, compared to what he's making per year. But those games are going to start to add up. And I think even with the kind of contract that he has, he is not going to be that dumb. And really, it's a thing where it's like either you stick to your beliefs, whatever they are, or and be unemployed, or you follow along because again, they're taking money out of his pocket now. And even if you're Kyrie Irving making that kind of coin, it's going to add up after a while. And at some point, a team is going to get tired of this nonsense. It's like, do you want to play or not? And that's what he's got to decide.
Well, Gary, this is what I'll say. Kyrie Irving is a very complicated individual.
We've known that.
I also think he's a very smart individual. And as far as the shot, that's his decision. I would hope anybody would get it, but if you don't want it, I respect that. That's totally up to you. But what I will say about Kyrie is priorities in life. And Kyrie is somebody that's very socially conscious, knows a lot about what's going on around him in society and has strong beliefs. That's not to say other NBA players do not. That is not my point. But what my point is, it's very, very strong for him. And he has done a lot of things in the community, going back to George Floyd's family and buying a home for the family. He's done quite a few things. It doesn't talk about a lot, doesn't get recognized for it a lot. Those are things that he's really concerned about. Where am I going with this, Gary? I, in some ways, compare Kyrie Irving to Jim Brown. And I say that from this standpoint. I could see Kyrie Irving at some point at the top of his career walking away and retiring and not doing it. Will he forfeit a lot of money, Gary? Absolutely. Positively. $400,000 is what he's lost so far, $400,000. But his priorities, in my opinion, from what I see, are tied to social activism and things in the community that he wants to do. And I think that is a stronger commitment for him right now in his life than the basketball. The people that a general manager or owner of a basketball team, or as they say, the governor of a basketball team, their priority is basketball. They want individuals who find that as their first priority. I don't know if that's Kyrie Irving's first priority right now, Gary. I really don't. And I don't say that to knock him. It's his choice. But I can see him if Kyrie is not the kind of person, and I'll use you and me as an example. You may talk to me about something you want me to do, and at some point I may say, you know what, Gary, we're going to do it because, I believe in you. Kyrie Irving is somebody that is not going to just have him do it for you. He has to believe in whatever he's doing. He has to thoroughly believe. If he's going to change his mind, he has to have a thorough belief in it. Now, the downside of this for the Nets The Nets are saying he's not going to, they're not going to take him halfway because he doesn't have the vaccination yet. There's a law in New York that anything indoors, you have to be vaccinated. You can't play. And I don't think they can get the trade value for him right now because everybody knows that he can't play. So why am I going to give up a 2 pick or 3 picks or 1 pick for Kyrie Irving right now? So it's a rough situation for the Nets. And also, I will be in the minority in saying this, Gary. Kevin Durant and James Harden, I think that's a good combination, and they're all right. And I think they still make a move in the East and maybe for a championship. I believe that having Kyrie Irving and James Harden on the court at the same time, that's 2 ball-dominant guards. I think eventually when you get to the playoffs, that will cause a problem. And it cause a problem from the standpoint, both of them want the ball in their hands. Who's going to take second fiddle? I know last year, Kyrie said he would be the shooting guard and Harden could handle the point. But as you get into the playoffs and you get closer and closer, it starts hitting in your mind, I need to be the one to make the shot. I need to be the one with the ball in my hand. If something's going to happen, it needs to be happening because of me. It's ego. It's going to become a part of it, and that's just my feelings on it. But as far as Kyrie Irving, if he doesn't play, and as I said, I can see him walking away and retiring. I honestly can see that. But if he does play, it'll be good. He's one of the best in the league. But they do not win a championship with Irving, Harden, and Durant.
John, that's a very strong statement, and I really understand what you're saying. I agree with everything. The Jim Brown comparison is something I've never really considered. My biggest problem with Kyrie, and I think it's not so much his beliefs, it's the things that he's saying, which I'll just say I think are irresponsible. It's not so much about his opposition to the vaccine. Again, that's a personal decision. The problem is what he's putting out there about it. It's misinformation. And that's where I think he is making his biggest mistake. But Gary, and that's where I think he needs to get in check, because again, whether you agree with it or agree with the vaccine or masking or not, just don't put out bad information about it.
And I agree with you, Gary, but it also leads me to this as well. The misinformation that is coming out, it also leads me to think this may be somebody that really doesn't want to play right now.
And that could be it.
And I'll give you instead of saying Jim Brown, I'll give you another one because Jim Brown may be too strong of a comparison. Barry Sanders walked away from the Lions, and he was still in his, just like Jim Brown, but we'll go with Barry Sanders, still in his prime and could have still been the NFL leading rusher and walked away.
Yeah. I like that one too. I can think of several players that have walked away. There's a saying in sports about some guys that are a different cat. I think that's the term that I've heard, and I could even apply that one to Ben Simmons. But in the case of Kyrie Irving, what you said makes a lot of sense. Maybe he's just a different cat. The sad part about it from his standpoint is that he is so immensely talented.
Yes, he is.
And I mean, which is an understatement. It's just when you have that kind of talent, you want to see it maximized. You want to see it turn into something that, well, you want to see it rewarded with a championship and success. He's got a ring. He's had a measure of success, but right now, I mean, again, I don't know where his head is at, in terms of the game. And the only thing I can think is that by taking money out of his pocket, maybe that gets his attention. But if his attention is not on basketball, the money is not going to matter. So again, everything you said makes perfect sense. We just have to wait and see. the ball is in his court, so to speak, and see what he wants to do. Does he want to continue being an elite basketball player, period?
Fair enough. And you said it very well.
Yeah. Well, on that note, John, I think, we've talked about just about all the subject in sports that matter. It's been a fun discussion. And I can't wait to see, of course, how Game 5 turns out in baseball. I can't wait to see what happens between Kentucky and Georgia. In fact, I can't wait to see what happens between Alabama and Mississippi State this weekend, because, again, we could get a surprise there. I don't think it's going to happen, but college football rather, is entering that really sweet spot of the season where you're seeing the quality matchups in conference. And I think by the end of this month, we'll probably know who the the top 4 playoff teams are. And that's what I look forward to with this.
Well, Gary, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, man. Thanks for leading this again. It's been great. You forgot one thing. You're interested in all that, but there's one thing you forgot. We got to be interested in seeing New England beat Dallas this week. We got to be interested in seeing that. Isn't that right, John Pitt?
That is incorrect. Sorry. That is not correct.
But John Pitt, and I mean, again, it pains me as a follower of the Washington football team to say it, but I'm gonna give your team some dap. They look pretty daggone good right now, and I mean, not just in that division, but in the NFC. And hey, this is give credit where it's due.
They're doing a great job, and regardless of whatever happens, it's going to be a great game to watch. It's always great to see Dallas, because when Dallas is relevant, it makes the whole NFL better. Just like in college football, when Notre Dame is relevant, it makes everything that much better in college football. Too bad they're not relevant right now. But on that note, Gary and John, I've had a great time, and we're going to do this again next week. Y'all have a great time. Be careful, be safe, have fun, and watch a lot of sports.
Watch us on YouTube. Tell all your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers and your boss. Next time, folks.